Okay, perfect. So
So
here we are.
I'm really grateful. I'm actually going to turn the volume up because my hearing is terrible now. I have to get hearing aids.
Oh, really?
Yeah, oh yeah. So well, it's been a while since we were able to catch up. So before we get started, because maybe everyone doesn't understand what it took to get this interview going for
Yeah.
me. Um, you are living proof that where there's a will, there's a way. Because we kept on trying. This didn't work. This didn't work. You're like, wait. I'm like, and here we are. So I'm excited.
This is life, right? This is what I say all the time. This is how life is. You gotta learn how to just move through it because it's not easy.
Oh,
It's
things happen, and I think that's what we started talking about when before we were like really able to catch up on how we view, especially the life, the world, but the mental health world, right?
yeah.
And largely, I had this conversation, and immediately you jumped into my mind because someone was telling me about the Florida models for rehabs and how they do these things, and I'm reminded that it is a business,
Yeah.
and some people treat it as a business. So I know I'm not alone with this opinion. There are people who have been. I've been going to the same therapist for years. My very first client, I went to the same therapist for 4 years. They couldn't help me. What do you got to say about that? I go get your money back.
Yeah.
Four
Hey, all
years
right.
and
So wait a
nothing.
minute. I just want to take a moment here to introduce you, if you don't mind, because
Oh,
obviously I know
I'm
you.
so sorry. Yes.
No, that's okay. So everybody, first of all, welcome. And I'm sorry this wasn't a live because I did want it to be an interactive thing where maybe you could have asked questions and stuff. But here we are. So life threw us a challenge and we accepted. So this is Ben Kimmel. He is a mental health specialist, an author, and also a very dear friend of mine who I'm proud to say I have known since oh my gosh, how old were we? Really, really young kids, let's
Oh,
just say.
13 years, something like that.
Yeah, probably it might have even been a little before that. Yeah, somewhere
Probably.
around there. But anyway, so the reason I am bringing Ben on is because he is such a wealth of information um, for a lot of reasons. I think there's just that personal experience of life, which everybody, of course, has. And I think that when we share our stories with each other, we all find it very helpful and sometimes empowering. And we want to talk about empowerment later. But this is something that I just felt like, this was, I don't know, it was the right time to reach out to him. And I'm glad that he's here. So,
The
Ben,
internet didn't think so, but we still made it work.
yeah. So Ben, go ahead and introduce yourself to all the Rising Dawn yoga community. Let's hear it.
So first, I want to do that, and I don't know why I'm getting choked up. I really don't.
Aw.
Um, I I know you a long time, and it's so interesting when you see people come from a certain place and evolve into becoming this amazing source of resource, energy, spirit, whichever word you choose. And so my name is Ben Kimmel. I am a person who is in long-term recovery. This past April 1st, I've been clean and sober from any recreational drug or a drink for 34 years. Um, and it was interesting. I got into writing. And what had happened was someone challenged me. Now, this person was in their active addiction, and they didn't like anything that I was saying. And they pretty much told me that I should shut up. Or they said, and if you're going to do something, either put up or shut up. And I took that as like a challenge. So I decided to put up. Um, you know, the way the world is, I'm not someone who thinks like the opiate epidemic is new. It's been around for a long time. Drug addiction, alcoholism has been around for so long. Depression, anxiety, anticipatory anxiety, all the little models that we built and played with in our head, they've been around a long, long time. So it's really like mind blowing to me when someone thinks this is new.
Yeah.
No, mental health or mental illness, however you want to word it, has been around since the dawn of time.
Yeah. No
No
pun
pun
intended,
intended.
right? So so tell everybody, how did you get started? Obviously you have your personal story of how you went through things, and I would love for them to hear that if you're open to that. Um, and then I would love for them to understand, like, how did you get started where you were then on the other side of things helping people?
So, well, literally, I'm an open book. Literally, because my story, I have a bunch of books out there, but it's not that I don't want to promote them. And it's not that I'm not proud of them.
Yeah.
It's an accomplishment, but I when I accomplish something, I kind of want to move on to the next thing. So I know I used to go to 12-step meetings and people would say, "Hi, I'm so and so, and I'm an addict or an alcoholic." I just don't. And then someone asked me in one of my classes, they go, "Well, do you identify as an addict and an alcoholic?" I go, "I identify as Ben." The only label that I had to learn to like really concern myself is me. All these labels, even the word depression or anxiety, it's a trained word. I know I needed to understand. So I was very little, if you remember. I was like this little scrawny kid, cute, cute. But even that was tough because nobody wants to date the little guy, the little cute one. That's like someone you want to put in your pocket and play with it when you get home. Like I wanted to be good looking. I wanted to be handsome. I wanted to be tough. I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be eh, uh, like the Patrick Swayze or the James Dean. I wanted all that. I mean, we grew up. Movies today are different. We grew up with movies like The Outsiders, and I identified with the like that troubled youth because I
Yeah.
was that long-haired, burnout kid. But in the same time, none of that was me.
Yeah.
You and I talked about the brilliant lectures from Ram Dass.
Yeah.
We calls this a spacesuit. And then when you look at someone, you're like, well, yeah, I like the way that looks. Well, let me try that on. So I went through my young life trying on a lot of different suits, and none of them fit well. And I think the most valuable lesson I ever learned, and I use analogies to help me understand things, because I was born in a regular, normal, everyday dysfunctional family in a regular, normal, everyday, dysfunctional town, in a suburban neighborhood in Long Island. Um, I had challenges. I had learning disabilities that went undiagnosed, and I stuttered when I'd read. And so I get nervous thinking about the insecurity I felt at that time. So if you remember, reading went around the room. This person read a paragraph, this person read a paragraph, then this person. So I'd be like one, two,
Yeah.
three, four, five. And then the performance anxiety would go up because I didn't like to read. Because when I would read, it would sound something like this. And I get emotional when I say it because it's very true to me.
Uh-huh.
The quick brown fox
Yeah.
jumped over the lazy dog. I read that way. So kids can be punishing,
Yeah.
and and cruel. No one wants to be the dumb kid. No one wants to be the smelly kid. No one wants to be the kid that is left out.
Right.
And I think my biggest fear was that. So you and I went to this place at the same time. It's called
Yeah.
Woodland Junior High School. They call it middle school now. I guess we're showing our age. No one calls it junior high anymore. But I remember the very first day I saw the cafeteria, and it was this big. huge room, and I was this little scrawny boy, and there was two of them actually. So the one I was at was closer to the entrance to go out the side of the building. And I walked in these double doors and I lost my breath because I saw all these people.
Yeah.
Now, coming from where you had the food, there were tables right there, and they were we called them the jocks, the athletes, right? We call them a lot of other things, but the jocks, athletes, the pretty people for the neighborhood, the somewhat rich for the neighborhood. No one was really um, exceptionally poor or wealthy in our town. We were perfectly middle class, and I remember the popular kids on the right hand side facing in. Then all the way on the left hand side were the long haired bad kid burnouts, which I don't have long hair now, but I could. I shaved it for a reason. But they were the troublemakers. So both sides had status, they had parties, they had popularity, they were noted, they were recognized, they were noticed. But in the middle of the cafeteria was this scene, and it was pretty much if you sat in the middle of you were like this unknown, faceless person. That's the guy that walks up to you at the reunion, like, "Do you remember me? I sat behind you." And no, I never wanted to be that person, to be
Right.
unnoticed, and I didn't know. I didn't. I knew these thoughts and feelings then. I just didn't know how to. I didn't have the language to verbalize them. And secondly, I didn't know there were people like you or I that we could speak to and help come to a constructive conclusion about that.
Right.
So I was so painfully insecure and afraid and intimidated. That's when I started to grow these different images. Like nobody really knew me until one day, McVeigh Elementary School, another one that we know about.
Yeah.
I got drunk. I was in seventh grade, and I got drunk. I had long hair. I got drunk, and I smoked pot. And I remember thinking Monday morning, everyone's gonna be like, they were gonna be hard on me. They were gonna make fun of me because I didn't know how I acted. Then all of a
Right.
sudden, it was like I was the greatest thing since pockets. I got this thing called validation.
Oh,
I got recognized.
right.
So something you've said, and I've heard you say this, and I really want to celebrate and springboard from that. We are is energy, right? We are
Yeah.
these beings witnessing everything around, and it's so amazing. And this morning when I was writing my journal, I wrote, we are what we consume. If you consume hate, you are hate. If you consume love, you are love. And I didn't know any of these things because I didn't have someone to guide me. Secondly, I was too afraid to tell someone because then, what are you crazy? What's the matter with you?
Yeah.
When you see yourself as awkward, when you have anxiety disorders, or when you have the chemistry of depression, the idea of opening up to someone is painfully intimidating because, well, there is something called rejection sensitive disorder, which I do relate to. But after I read, it said like I remember reading this high percentage, like 65 or 70% of people live with rejective sensitive disorder. And I'm like, no, everyone lives with this. Everyone has insecurities, everyone has biases.
Yeah.
The idea of this whole thing about being painfully alone and reacting to it, to me, was very challenging. I
So, with you, I just am curious. Like you mentioned about getting drunk. Like, was that the start of your addiction? Like how that started for
sure,
you?
yeah, sure. Well, in fairness, I did get drunk before that. So I had an older brother. I love him. He was great to me, but he was an older brother. Like
Okay.
he was a typical older brother. I got dead legs and noogies and punched me in the, punched me in the arm and he beat me up. But he loved me. But to his ability, he loved me. No one else could hit me, but he could.
Right.
So there was a time one day he came in and he said, if I'll do your homework for you, but you got to drink this cup. And it was a red Solo cup. In that cup was vermouth. Don't drink vermouth straight. It was so awful. I drank the whole thing and I
Oh,
kind of enjoyed the way I felt for about 10 minutes until the world started to spin.
okay.
So I threw up all over. He's babysitting me. He's supposed to take care of me. So
Yeah.
it must be a cool thing to do, right? It must be cool. I
Right.
think I did
Okay.
nothing wrong. By the way, just a little side note, he did do all my fractions homework. Every one of them were wrong. I got in trouble. But such is life when you have a big brother.
Yeah.
He was
So,
actually
so in
the
middle school, so in middle school, obviously you're going through the anxiety, um, like you said,
self-medication works.
right. So I was just going to say, so that's your form of self medication. So where does it go from there? Because I mean, I remember you throughout middle school, but then you definitely were not in high school. So what was going on? Just if you could share that with
So I
everybody.
was in middle school for a little longer than most people were in middle school. I never got out of eighth grade math. Thank you, Mr. Pangoza. Um, but I never got out of eighth grade math. I again, I had learning challenges. There were two teachers that actually made me think maybe I'm doing something wrong. One was a man by the name of Mr. Shear, who I have a tremendous amount of love and respect for because he was a life-saving teacher, and I didn't know it back then. And another man by the name of Mr. Nastry, he walked up to me in the hallway. He goes, "Are you gonna come to class today?" And I go, "Well, I got it. You saw me." Meanwhile, I have long hair. I'm on a few different psychedelic doses and stoned. And I guess he saw me and realized that. He goes, "Are you going to come to class?" I said, "Well, you saw me. So if I don't come to class, you're going to write me up." He goes, "No, because if you ever want to learn, I'll teach you. But when you come to class, you disturb everybody. Some of these kids want to learn. If you ever want to learn, I'll sit with you for hours. I'll teach you anything you want to know. But if you
Yeah.
don't, I would rather you not come." And I don't think I don't know if I went to that class. I think I most likely I didn't go because he told me not to,
Yeah.
or I was on things. So I didn't like how I thought or felt or what reality is. And I was also trained to believe that these so-called gateway drugs are going to make me feel better. I don't
Okay.
think they really did. I mean, I have no argument with marijuana or medical marijuana, but the amount of LSD or mescaline I was taking was certainly not healthy. So I never really,
Wow.
I didn't I was taking it way too often. I took too much, and I was a little boy. I looked like I was six, you
Yeah.
know. So
And
the
you're also
damage,
talking about, like, I mean, now we know, right, that the human brain isn't even fully developed until you're into your 20s. I mean, so you're talking about a developing brain that probably, yeah, is trying to cope with that kind of a psychedelic response.
right? So the midbrain is my infinite child, and the frontal lobe, which is trying to come up with like rational thinking,
Yeah.
is not going to be so rational, and
So
that is the damage that happens.
so when did you wind up leaving school?
I well, so that part's a little murky. I know there was I got thrown out of Woodland because I went to class on I was high, and I freaked out in a classroom.
Oh, wow.
I literally freaked. I think it was my second time in ninth grade. No, I know it was. I know it was. It wasn't my first time in ninth grade. I think it was like my second time in ninth grade. Again,
Right.
I never got out of eighth grade, man. Don't even know how I got out of seventh grade, man. But either way, back then I don't know if the school really cared because it was obvious. I mean, I was drooling on myself. I mean, people would throw things across the room and I'd be like, oh, I mean, I
Wow.
looked bad.
Yeah.
And my parents live in denial because they don't want to see. They
I
knew they
was
had
just
to
going to
deal with it.
ask. Yeah.
Yeah.
So nobody from the school notifies your parents and tells them anything?
Well, my mother did get
Oh,
frequent calls, I
okay.
mean, she got calls, but they told my mother they heard I was selling drugs. I'm like, no, not me.
Right. Okay.
I don't do that. Again, there is a picture of me somewhere from my ninth grade, first time ninth grade yearbook, and I don't like looking at it because I remember zooming in because I never like taking pictures because I can tell by my facial expression what I was thinking, what I was going through, and what I was feeling.
Right.
I've earned that level of awareness over time. So if I saw my face of a youthful picture, I would know that I was nervous, scared, hurting, and I could see that. So when I
Yeah.
saw this picture of me in ninth grade, I zoomed in and I'm like, I'm high. I zoomed in. You have these big bright lights on you. And when
Yeah.
you have bright lights on, your pupils get real small, not on
Yeah.
LSD. So my pupils are huge. And I don't really like to look at that because I don't like the end result or the chemistry or the emotion that comes with that because
Right.
I can still get in touch with that. I choose to move on from it.
So at some point, then do they tell you that you can't come back to school, or did you leave on your own?
Yeah, no, I freaked out in class. There was a what do they call the teachers substitute,
Uh-huh.
and this man literally looked like someone from the movie Revenge of the Nerds. I mean, his name was Mr. Rowley. I can't remember a lot, but I remember him, and I remember probably threatening his life. And I remember they had flowers for sale that day, so I was walking around the room eating flowers off people's desks.
Oh my
So.
God. Okay.
So I think about it. I can see humor in that, but at the same time, if that were my child, I would lose my mind, right?
Yeah.
So I think I wasn't welcome back after that.
Okay. So
And-
where do you go from there? Like what happens next in
I
your
went
path?
I went to this school called PACE. And I don't know what PACE stood for. It was an acronym for something, but we said it was People Against Common Education because we were stupid kids. But the drug use didn't change; it picked up. You know, I
Really?
yeah. Well, at a young age, I did cocaine at a very young age. I did angel dust at a very young age, and heroin came at a young age. I think heroin came into my life at like 15.
Oh my
But
God.
I had gotten so I've been bullied, and it's it's funny, when all these school shootings came up, and everyone's like, "Oh my God." We live in a different world today, so our access to information or misinformation is really different because everyone has it. Oh, look, this happened here. There was a school shooting. I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
violence existed back before the internet. Um, and I was getting bullied by this guy, Mike. And I grew up in I'm an Irish Jew. I'm like the only Irish Jew that I know. Although I do know the mayor of Dublin was Jewish. He just didn't last long. But
That's interesting.
the Manischewitz looked funny on the table, I'm sure. But this guy wanted to tell me that he was a Nazi skinhead and how he hates Jews, and he would say like German things to me sometimes, and he would pick on me, and he was bigger than me, but he wasn't real strong. I remember thinking if I just got a shot off, I could hurt him, but I was afraid because I was little.
Yeah. So this is at
And
the other school now, this
yeah,
Pace
this
school?
was at Pace, and it was like a
Okay.
really small school. Everybody had some sort of behavioral challenge,
Okay.
but they were also all on drugs. So I'm always cautious when I talk about my drug history because I never want to sound like a commercial. But this kid was picking on me, so I decided I was on a lot of LSD, and I decided that I was going to stab him in the throat.
Oh my God.
I was done. I was like, you know what? Whatever happens to me after it, he's never going to pick on me again. And I remember training myself just in case of the fight. So I was cutting things into my body. I had a big hole in my pants. I carved this like upside down cross into my leg.
Oh my,
And I I was ready. I was so angry. And then what happened was I go into the room, but someone else sat in the seat next to Mike. So how am I going to kill him now? Like, and I didn't know what to do. And this teacher, I don't remember his name, but he was brilliant. He looked at me and he handled this in such a way that I remember that. He was, "You okay, buddy?" Because I'm bleeding.
yeah.
I've things carved it on me. I have a cross. Are you okay? And I'm like, I made myself in the form of a crucifix, and I just said, "Hail Satan." And I just started telling him things about the devil. Now, I remember there was this thing about Charles Manson, and the reason why this fight started, because this kid, Mike, carved a swastika in his forehead, but not so bright because he looks at it in the mirror. So when he approached me in the morning, what really got me going, he approached me in the morning and he goes, "What do you think of this?" And he pointed to the swastika. I go, "Why do you have a backward swastika carved into your head? Did you like do that in the mirror?" And it embarrassed him. So he smacked me around. And that was the last day I was ever in a public school system.
Wow. So, okay, so so where, just so everyone can follow the path here. So where do you go next? So you're no longer in Pace. What happens
No,
next to you?
I was working for my family's business. I was kind of like on punishment, but you know, I had done cocaine already. I tried it, and I tried crack, and back then the crack epidemic was this huge thing, and I remember trying this, and for the minute or two that it lasted, I felt unbelievable. But then the crash is twice as worse.
Right.
So I found myself doing things that I never thought I would do. I said things that I never thought I'd say. I stole from people that I never thought I would steal from. I hurt people in ways that I never thought I would do.
Wow.
And I just believe, well, this is me. You know, so they tell. I don't agree with this so much now. Then they told me you're a disease because alcoholism is a clinical disease. I know all about it. And the Dr. Jelinek THIQ cells in your brain and how a buildup of it gives you a 3 times greater chance of being obsessive compulsive addicted behavior. I get all that. But people think they know everything. And they're like, well, your disease is talking to you. Well, no, my disease is chemistry. So let's get that straight. But if you want to go by that model, my disease or my depressive thinking was telling me that this is it, and you're gonna die anyway. My first attempt in suicide, I was 8.
Oh my gosh.
Um, I I lived. I didn't have a great childhood. I had great parents. They loved me. I mean, they had to deal with the challenges. I had a great brother. I didn't have real friends until I got older. I didn't have a sense of self. I believed in these models, which is what you train people to be free from.
Yeah.
If I if I had someone like that in my life, I wouldn't have seen a bullet go through someone's flesh. I wouldn't have had guns put in my face in East New York, Brooklyn, Fall Rockaway, the Bronx. Um, Alphabet City. None of the things I saw things at a young age that I didn't need to see.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm tough or not tough. Like I I look at that. I wasn't the worst one out there. I was me. And my father and I always had this challenge because we wanted to love each other. We just couldn't get along. And I was in trouble a lot. And he
Yeah.
was frustrated. So the only thing that my father and I had is we would fish. We had fishing in common. On New Year's Day, no matter how bad we fought, we used to walk the beach
Aw.
on in Point Lookout.
Yeah.
Shit. Oh man, so hard. So
Yeah.
we just didn't get along, and I wanted to love him, and he wanted to love me. He was my very first hero, and
Yeah.
I was always letting him down. So do you see how the degradation just keeps digging the hole?
Right. And that's that thought process, that perpetual cycle of negative
I couldn't get
self-talk
away
that
from
I,
that.
I work with so often, and I get it. And you know, it's interesting too, because as kids, we don't realize, you think your parents are like, oh, they have it all figured out, right? So
They're not real people. They're mom
right.
and
And
dad.
it's like, meanwhile, your parents are there. Because I remember the day, my son was born, and they gave him to me in the hospital, and especially, gosh, when it was time to leave the hospital, I'm like, you
What do
want
I
me
do
to leave
now?
with this? Are you sure? Like,
Yeah,
where's
yeah.
the rule book? Where's the handbook that goes with this?
Is
But
this legal?
that
Like, how does
that
this
makes
work?
you
Yeah.
understand, like, your parents are just operating from their own space of causes and conditions and beliefs.
Mhm.
But I don't want to go too far into that, because I just want to stick to. So after you now you're at the point where you're not in school, you're doing drugs, um and you're having these suicidal thoughts still. So where at what point do you finally say enough, like, I need to get help for myself?
And I would never have said it. In all fairness and honesty,
Okay.
I wouldn't have said it. What had happened was my father bought this boat, and he had a successful company, and he was building his business, and he was doing really well. He bought this boat, and he made the mistake of trusting me. He says, "Why don't you go with your friends?" They weren't friends, to the boat, hang out, and have a good time.
Okay.
So uh, I was drunk, and we were talking about the need to go to Brooklyn to get high. Um, I destroyed the boat. I destroyed parts of the marina.
Mm.
I humiliated my family's name, and then I remember coming home saying, "Oh, something's wrong with the boat," and I left. And then tried breaking into this diner. Oh no, that was after. So we all had to run and split up, and I was with someone who I'll name as Mike. He's no longer with us. He's died. But anonymity is very important to me, even though
Of
he's gone.
course. Yeah.
So Mike was with me, and it's so hard to talk about this sometimes. Not when I'm doing motivational speaking, which I do, or when I do presentations. I actually allow that to flow because
Right.
there's a reason. But this is much different to me. So what had happened was we decided that we were going to carjack someone and we were going to end that person's life. And uh, so I waited by this corner and I had a brick in my hand. And this woman pulled up in an old blue duster. And I walked over and I opened the car door and I grabbed her and I had the brick. And the idea was to hurt her, to bash her head. Um,
Oh my gosh.
she screamed, "What do you want?" And for a moment, I froze. I wasn't afraid of what I was about to do. At that point, I was a murderer. I was that person because I led myself to believe that this is who I am. I didn't care about that. It was the realization that this is real now and this is who I am. So in that second of pausing, I mean, I was sickly, I weighed about 80 pounds. I was all smoked out. So when she shook me off and she has a gas pedal and a brake, right? She just started hitting, she hit the gas pedal and I went flying off and I threw the rock, I think through the back window. And I realized this, I thought to myself, this is my last day alive. So we broke it. I went with Mike and some other people and I broke into a deli and I grabbed this cash register, which probably weighed more than me. And I ripped it and I broke it open and there was like nothing in there. Because I didn't think about the fact that they take all the money out when they leave. So I ended up taking like 9 cigarette lighters and maybe like I don't know, maybe a pack of cigarettes. I don't even know. And I was about 16 years old, and there was a helicopter chasing me through the neighborhood, and they caught us right in front of a place called Prospect Park.
Mhm.
And myself and that person, Mike, who's no longer with us, um, we're the only two that got arrested. Mike, they called him a throwback because he was 15. I was 16, so they called me a keeper. So they took him and they put him in the car, and the car door was closed. And he was sitting in the back, and then they come, and I decided that I had to look tough, like I had to make a statement, like I was going to go down in this blaze of glory. So I have one officer on this side of me holding this arm. I have another officer on this one. This guy, the officer opens the car door and comes back and returns to grab the other arm. Everyone from our neighborhood is looking. So I wanted to go out like a gangster.
Oh my
So I
God.
picked my legs up, pushed my legs forward to close the car door, and I looked at the cops and said, I'm sorry, my mother told me never get in the car with strangers. That that didn't go over well. I caught a little bit of a beating. Not gonna lie, my head accidentally hit the car in the wagon, and
Right.
they smacked me around. But I got sent away, and then I started to see things really different. Like I saw things that were life saving, and that changed me. Like I was taught about racism from a very young age. They lit a cross on fire on my neighbor's lawn because there was a black man that lived there. So I was taught everyone hates me because I'm a Jew. I should, and that everyone hates everyone. Black people are the enemy, Jews are the enemy. And I grew up around that racism, or at least I thought I did. And I was this little kid in an adult rehab, and they were all talking to me. And
So when you get, I just want to make sure that I got that. So when you got arrested, they sent you to a rehab, or it was like
yeah,
a
no, I got a
correctional
lawyer.
facility.
You're right. I'm sorry. Yes, I got a lawyer. He worked out a plea deal. I pled guilty. So it was either I do 1 year plus 90 days in jail, which I
Okay.
didn't have a doing time kind of body, or I could go to rehab. Which
Okay.
the funny part of that is they told me you could go to AA. And in my mental Rolodex, I'm like, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. All right. Well, what do alcoholics do? They drink. What does anonymous mean? Because you don't tell anybody. So I thought they were offering me the opportunity to go to AA so I could drink and not tell anybody. I'm
Oh
like,
my God.
I'll go to AA. And it was a struggle. I mean, I was pretty sick when I went in. I was taking certain medication that I stopped taking, which was dangerous, and I was not feeling well.
But you're actually at a facility that you have to stay at.
Well, I went to an inpatient. I went to three of them. I went to
Okay.
an inpatient facility in Kerhonkson, New York, and that was still. I thought I was going to be dead anyway, but I had actually tried to commit suicide there,
Wow.
and it was weird to me because no one ever cared. My friends, the people I hung around with, no one cared. If you had feelings, who gives a shit? Oh, sorry, but like no one cares. And
Yeah.
these people cared about me. And grown men came into my room crying because I wanted to die. And there was a man by the name of, oh God,
Oh, take your time, please.
no, I'm good. I do this. I do this for a living. His name is Armand D. Matthias. And he sat with me and he talked to me in a way and I couldn't figure out how he knew what I was thinking or what my thoughts were or how I felt. I didn't know what I had was relatable. I didn't know we're all spiritual beings going through the same thing and things are relatable. I thought I was the only one. I was terminally unique. I was gonna die being alone. And when he sat with me and he put like his arm around me and it saved my life. And I can't say anything other than I owe that man that debt. And when I was going to go to the next rehab because I couldn't go home because I signed a deal saying I would do at least 13 months or 15 months in a rehabilitation facility. I went from this place and this man who he was black. He had a very southern accent and he lived a tough life. He lived a real tough life. He was like a hobo on like these freight cars and just drank and he was an apple picker. I mean, he lived poor as poor could be. He goes, listen, I know you're leaving. I need you to come to my room with me. So I went into his room and I didn't know why I was there. And he turned to me and he held me in this pair of folded jeans. He looked at me and goes, I never had a new pair of jeans in my entire life. He's probably older than my age now. I'm 52. He was probably older than me than I am now. And I just turned 17. And he said, I've never had a new pair of jeans in my life. I remember when they gave this to me, it felt so good. And then he gave them to me. And he goes, I would rather give them to you so you don't go back out there. He goes, son, that life doesn't need you. Just go wherever they tell you to go.
Yeah.
Here it is. This man was black as night, and I was taught he's my enemy. Ahmadi Matthias was black. He was black. When I had no one, they saved my life. Well, there was other friends that I had there that sat by me. I'm not saying not putting anyone down, but I have to be careful because of anonymity. So I went to another place, which wasn't a great place, but then I lived in a farm for 11 months.
Right.
And my court case was kind of winding down. I got sentenced. Uh, and I remember this farm was like a very strict. It was a Franciscan house. It was run by people that they meant well, but they didn't know enough about mental health. They knew a lot about AA. They knew a lot about alcoholism. They knew a lot about how they got sober, but mental health is mental health.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people know that. One of the reasons why I stopped going to 12-step fellowships is because people think all of a sudden, because they're sober a certain amount of time, they're experienced in mental health. No, you know what works for you. I don't have the
Right.
same DNA as you. I know what works for me. So but that's another thing. When I was there, I remember my father telling me I'm not mad at you anymore. And I had waited my whole life to hear that. And
Right.
it was I remember at Thanksgiving, all the parents came up. They were all different ages at that farm, and I remember the parents came up, and my father and I was sitting on this upper deck, and it was in Hancock, New York. It's really really pretty looking mountains and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember standing with him on this deck, and we're looking out, and it was pretty. Like all the trees had snow on them. It was like a winter wonderland, and I remember standing there. We were looking like this is nice.
Yeah.
And we went in and we had Thanksgiving dinner together. I never knew that was going to be my last meal with my father.
Oh, wow.
So about 2 weeks before Christmas, um, it was a Sunday morning, and they called me and they said, listen, your father had a heart attack. And I remember getting mad and punching a wall. This guy Brian says, what are you hitting the wall for? We have to fix that. You got to get yourself together. Your father's sick. We got to go. So they
Oh,
sent me home with a senior member, they called him, and they sent me home with the priest that lived there, this man by the name of Father Anthony, who I love him dearly. They drove me home. They drove me home, and my father didn't know what AA was either. He was like, listen, you look good. I'm proud of you. You're doing well. You don't, if you want to have a beer or two later, but that other shit you don't need. And then my shadow, the guy that was with me, said, no, he's never going to drink again. My father's like, whatever, fine.
yeah. Yeah.
Whatever keeps him looking like that, I'm fine. Because you got to understand, I weighed 80 pounds when I went in. My skin was green. I had black rings beneath my eyes. I looked terrible.
Gosh.
I looked like I thought I was going to die. I
Yeah.
still didn't want to stay sober at that point. But then when I saw my father sick, I don't know, mortality and understanding of it came in. And so it was Christmas Eve, and we have this pond in front of the house, and it used to freeze over. We would play dodgeball on the ice. And I loved that because I was resentful about everything and anyone. So I got to throw a ball at someone. This is the greatest game ever. Um, there was a there was a counselor by the name of EJ. I hated him, and he was never really nice to me. I hope he found another line of work because he wasn't good. I
Yeah.
think he did actually, but anyway, he says he called me up. He goes, "You got to go upstairs." I'm like, "What I do?" Because you didn't do anything. I go, then why do I got to go upstairs? So they were really strict, and you were like, oh, if you were in trouble, I had to sit in the shake. They cut my hair off. They made me wear signs. It was a therapeutic community when I was there. Um, They go, he goes, just go upstairs. So I went upstairs and we go into the kitchen. He goes, do you want coffee? I go, why are you being nice to me? You're never nice to me. I'm not allowed to drink coffee. We're only allowed to drink coffee at certain times. Why are you being nice to me? He goes,
Right.
kid, just drink the coffee. So, and this I explain it the same way every time. I would have taken the courts calling me, telling me they made a mistake. I would have taken the courts calling me saying, we got another charge and you're going to do 10 years. I would have taken anything. Just please don't take my father from me
Mm,
because he started to tell me, I'm proud of you.
right.
And Christmas Eve, I go down, I get off at a bus station in Hempstead, which was around the block from a crack spot that I knew about, but I didn't even think about it. I actually had to get in a cab and I went and I still remember this conversation. And it's weird because I saw it in a movie once, though a question asked similarly. And I was like, oh my God, I said the same thing. So I got there and my whole family's looking for me, thinking like whatever. They didn't know where I was. I was waiting. They gave me a little money to get into a cab from the bus station to a place called Hempstead General, which is closed. So when we went there, when I went there, I saw him and he was in the CCU. And I remember it was like a long hallway and he was looking up and he had everything else was dark. It's Christmas Eve. They got Christmas lights on. It was just beautiful, just eerie and emotional. And he was just looking up and looking around. And I walked up, I said, hey, Pop, say what you say, kid. And we started talking. And I asked him, I said, hey, Pop, you remember how you said, you don't like liars? He goes, yeah, I don't like liars. You can't trust them. And you can't believe anything they say. I go, so you would never lie to me. He goes, you're my son. I would never lie to you. He says, so if I asked you a question, you tell me the truth, right? He says, of course. So I said, so then if I ask you if you're going to be okay, and you tell me, yes, I'm going to be okay, then you're going to be okay because you would never lie to me.
Oh,
And he said, I'm going to be okay, kid. It was the one time my father was allowed to lie to me. See, when I took the bus ride home, I remember talking to God, say, "Hey, buddy, I'm not doing so well down here. I'm not even liked. Just take me." My father, like, helped people learn to speak English. He helped people learn how to read and write. He helped people learn how to feed their family and work for a living. All I knew how to do was break things and destroy and steal, or that model that I had in my head. And I kept on saying, just take me instead. I firmly believe that my father had the same conversation. I'll go, just make sure he's okay. So there's a saying about the Son of Man, how he gave his life so we could have a light of life. I firmly believe that my father gave his life so that I could have my own. Because that's when I decided I don't want to be this way. I never wanted to be this way. And
Of course.
that's
Yeah.
really the push to what helped me get sober. And
Wow.
that is the most G-rated version because I do not like to glorify or romanticize things
No,
that
of course
happen
not.
because that's what I see.
Yeah.
They had me speaking to kids in schools. I'm like, I go, you gotta understand something. You're gonna send someone in here with a jumpsuit, they're gonna think that guy's like it's like a low grade porn to them because
Yeah.
that they can attach to that image and find protection. I attached to my image because I thought it protected me, almost killed me.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you. First of all, I mean, I just, there's a lot there that I didn't even know about your story. So I just want to thank you for sharing that with my community and everything.
It's an honor.
Um, I guess where, like, so you just, that's it. Like you make that decision then that you're not going back.
I would love to tell you that that was the last time. My last trip into the concrete jungle, so to speak, was April 1st. Well, it was a few days before April 1st, 1991. But I went up to that rehab that saved my life in the farm, and I
Okay.
visited some people, and I figured I just won't tell anybody. But as soon as I saw them, I started crying. I couldn't hold it. I couldn't hold the dishonesty. So our thoughts affect our feelings. Our feelings affect our chemistry.
Yeah, of
You know,
course.
and
So,
I couldn't hold it.
so, um,
Yeah.
so when you go back to the farm for the last time and you decide that's it, right? You're
Right.
getting clean and everything. Um, so so fill everybody in. Like, how do you get from that? What that's, I mean, that was an impactful
You
story
know,
that
I
you
would
just
love to
told
tell
us.
you that I've been enlightened my whole life and everything's great after that. But no, my 20s were rough. I didn't have a father. I didn't have guidance. My mother moved down to Florida because that was her dream. I had bad relationships. I had insecurities. I was never a good boyfriend. I wasn't a good husband. I never believed anyone would really love me, so I just settled on everything. It wasn't really until about 7 or 8 years ago I helped somebody take a trip and I sat with them to keep them sober and not drinking.
Was this through a job or you're just like,
It was someone I knew through a family.
okay.
And
So
they were
this
like,
is
would
before
you?
you get into mental
Yeah,
health
this was
work.
before I got into the mental health gig.
Okay.
And it's weird, you know, people don't know what they know. And it's a crazy thing to say. You have no idea what your talents are. Most people, they
Yeah.
believe in that ceiling. You know, it's like
Yeah.
the principle. You rise to the limits of your own assumptions. Like you only you can you know if I believe, well, this is all I am, well then this is all I'll ever be, right? And
Right.
I was I was in LA and I'm with this person, and traffic in LA is really bad. Everyone has two cars in LA, and they're both on the road at like the same time. Like, and I've heard it said that way, and it is really true. We moved like 5 feet in like an hour. He's like, "This is everyday traffic, by the way. Do you wonder why I was drinking?" I'm like, "No, I almost might let you drink because of this traffic. It was awful. And then
Yeah.
we joked around, and someone that I was helping as a sponsor called me up, and I go, listen, I got to take this. And there was nowhere to go, and this person had something going on, so I talked them through what was going on. And I hung up, and he goes, "Do you ever think about being a sober coach?" I go, what's that? He goes, it's what you just did. I go, no, I'm the guy's sponsor. He's like, He goes, I had a sober coach, and they do that for like a living. Then when he
Wow.
told me how much he had to pay, I'm like, wait, I could have been paid for this, you know? And I was like, in fairness, I always wanted to help people, and I never thought I would. But who in my head, who's going to listen to me, right?
Yeah.
Who would listen to me? I was writing at that time, and I was doing my journals and helping people out, and I was kind of surprised that people liked what I write.
So did you
And
make the move at that point to become a sober coach?
well, what had happened was I came home and I told a friend of mine who was in AA, and I'm like, hey, this guy told me I should be a sober coach. Then I told him how much they get paid. And he's like, dollars? I'm like, yeah, 100%. And then he said, I have this friend who's gonna do that. You should call him. So I called this person, and then I ended up being a specialist for an opiate overdose reversal program. And I don't, I sat in this class, I was so intimidated because everyone had like all these letters after their name, and everyone had all this experience, and I'm just Ben. Like, hi, I'm so and so, DDS, whatever, MB, MPP, whatever they're, and I'm like, I'm so intimidated, and I'm like looking at these people. I'm like, I'm never gonna make it, and I started having a screw it all attitude, like I'm not gonna get through this, and then they started talking about things, and I started going back at what I would never do that, I would never say that,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're like looking at me taking notes, like I don't know how I appeared to them, but I know I was helpful. So I did this program with it was a law enforcement initiative, and I ended up on the news. I ended up on the front page of the Bergen Record. And they asked, I remember these cops come over like, you're in the newspaper. I was like, oh wow, cool. They're like, have you ever been in the newspaper before? I'm like, yeah. He goes, oh really? What for? I'm like, there was a helicopter chasing me through my neighborhood. He's like, yeah,
Yeah,
no,
not
no.
for a good reason.
Yeah, he's like, no, no, this is different. And I was on the front page, and I'm like holding this kid. I still remember his name. Um, and I did well with that. I didn't handle the popularity well. I've never been popular before, and my fears and insecurities that I was going to lose this valuable thing caused me to be less responsible with this
Uh-huh.
great thing that I always had. So after that, I started getting credentials. I'm a certified professional life coach. I'm a certified alcohol recovery coach. A certified peer recovery coach. I'm a peer specialist. Um, uh, I'm a sober coach. And I have my things on the wall. So I'm also I got involved in hypnotism. So I'm a certified consulting hypnotist, and
Yeah.
that was the greatest thing for me. I started doing these shows for a publicly traded company, and I was doing a once a week show on like one of the largest financial firms. I would do an hour show on Wednesday for literally one of the largest financial firms in the world, and people were tuning in. And I was like, this is the greatest thing. I wanted to do this. Um, it that ended, and I was still looking to grow my business, but life changes. I'm human. So
Yeah.
human things happen. Went through a
Yeah.
divorce. went through a divorce. I have my share of faults in that. I have nothing but great things to say about her as a person. I still love her as a person. I want her to be happy, and I wish her well, and I hope that's the direction she's in. But I had to go through a rebuilding phase,
Yeah.
and I'm like people calling me like, "Hey, I need help," and I'm like, "I gotta help myself right now."
Yeah.
And then things. There are no accidents because I was thinking about I gotta get back into this. I gotta get back into this, and then out of nowhere, I heard from you.
Yeah.
And it's something that I would like you to know, and I hope this registers with you. And I hope you realize where this comes from the heart. You remember what I said about Armand D. Mathias, how he saved, that was life saving, how he talked to me,
Yeah.
how that black man gave me that pair of pants.
Yeah.
The phone call from you was equally life saving.
Oh, don't. Oh,
Thank you. To see who you've evolved as,
thank you.
to see who you have evolved as, because we grew up in the same crazy town. You and I know things about each other that no one else knows, safe to say.
Yeah.
So I'm still an advocate for mental health. I'm still an advocate for people who live with this thing called depression. I'm still an advocate for people who live with anxiety. I still will get out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning and talk to somebody if they need me. I did answer phones for anti-suicide. Um, or suicide prevention calls. I did this thing for 22 Kill, which 22 veterans commit suicide on a daily basis. Those phone
Oh,
calls,
yeah. I know that organization. I didn't know you were working with them. Wow.
that was a long time ago. I answered the
Wow.
phone calls and I spoke to a mutual friend of ours who got us all into that push-up challenge, the 22 push-up challenge.
Yes, I remember. That was
Right.
killer. Oh my God. I think I'm still sore.
Yeah, yeah. Somehow I talked to a few people on that and that was really successful. I did I used to do this thing called not even once, and they would have me speak to kids in high school. The first time I did it, I remember this teacher sitting in the back of the room. Ben, is it right, Ben? I go, yeah, that's me. He goes, so I'm animated. I'm letting you know. Like, well, I don't hide my emotion. I earned my emotion. I earned the right to cry. I would never cry. I would never show weakness. Now that is weakness. Hiding who you are, hiding how you feel, that's the weakest thing to me. I will never
I
do that.
I love that you just said that because I mean I feel like my whole job when I work coaching, especially meditation coaching, using it as a tool to help people see past those limited beliefs and those conditions that you, like you said, you carry with you from your childhood, and they keep that ceiling right here, like you said, they
Sure.
don't let you go any further. And when I work with people on that, like that is what you just said, like that's so important, is to say no, take that mask off,
Yes.
because that's your problem right there, is you build up these layers around your heart, you build up these identities to hide behind, and it's the bravest thing you can do, and that's where the strength is when you live your truth. um, and that, to me, you and I, so one of the things we've kind of been talking about working together is to do some retreats and talk about empowerment, like what does it mean to be empowered? And to me, empowerment is living a true life, living your truth. And that means, like, that's it, you take the mask off, and
Right.
you just start speaking your truth, and that's it. That's empowering.
I agree. So I came up with some acronyms. So as someone who tried to lose weight a few times in my life, I remember thinking, all right, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this, and all these great things. And I'm going to move 1,000 miles an hour, and then nothing happens. because none of them are realistic. So I talk about RASO, RASO, realistic, attainable, sustainable outcomes. That's what your goals have to be. So we start when we work with clients, we want them to be realistic
Yeah.
so they can create an attainable, sustainable outcome.
I
So
love that.
we're in the effort business, not the outcome business. And
Yeah. Yeah.
people, as soon as you don't see the outcome you want, people quit.
Yeah.
People are really inherently lazy because they don't think they're going to get the carrot at the end of the stick. So they're like, well, why bother? I'm never going to make it. So
Yeah.
that is, so find your RASO, RASO. And the other one that I talk about is the five fingers of rejective thinking: blame, shame, fault, guilt, regret. Now, if
Yeah.
I fold all those in, what do I have? A fist. That's the fist you use to beat yourself up with.
Yep.
So, why I'm really excited about this is A, it's rare to find someone who sees things that to me are so obvious when it comes to mental health. And like, you know, hey, listen, talk therapy is great. Everyone has their way, everyone has their journey. You and I, when we coach, we're about action. I'm
Yeah.
not about trying to get a client to stay with me for 10 years. If they want to stay, great. But my goal is to have them reach their best possible potential so they don't need me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You
That's, I mean,
coach
I
the
feel the same
exact
way.
same
Like
way.
the greatest thing, um, doing what I do for a living and working with people, obviously, and a lot of people that might tune in and hear this. Yeah, of course, I teach yoga classes and I have fun events and I do all that. But the crux of my work is working one-on-one with people and coaching them with using meditation and mindfulness as a tool to see past those limiting self-talk narratives, those beliefs. And yeah, that's where my gratitude is to keep going and doing what I'm doing is when they say goodbye. It's like
Yeah,
they're empowered, they're off and running. And I'm like, yeah,
right.
go. Like, I don't want you to keep coming back here.
So the word empowerment, it's a great word. I love it. I love the way it feels on my tongue when I say it. I am empowered.
Yeah.
So motivation is neither positive nor negative. It's just motivation. I was motivated to get high. I was motivated to create to be violent.
Yeah.
So, but I'm motivated to stay fit. I'm motivated to get better. So motivation is just like electricity. It just needs a directional flow, right?
Yeah.
Inspiration is the same thing. But when you are empowered, your motivation, your inspiration, your aspirations, they flourish and you
Yeah.
can feel it. And even as we're talking about this, and I'm sure you can relate, you can feel it. You feel the chemistry in
Yeah.
your body.
Yeah. That
That's like
energy
a,
just
yeah,
comes. And yeah, there's so much of that. I mean, the energy, I use so one of the things as a yogic practice that we teach is to use the body as a tool. It's the greatest gift you were given by, I don't know, whatever your belief is, God, creator, it doesn't universe, it doesn't matter to me what your higher source is. A yogic practice will bring you closer to whatever it is you believe. But what's beautiful about it is that we talk about you were gifted this meat suit, and it is the most amazing tool in the world because of what you were talking about. Like, yeah, there is emotion, but then there's that physiological response that comes up in the body. And in a yogic practice, in meditation, in mindfulness, I teach people to learn how to recognize that slight little shift in chemistry before it starts to blow up into a full blown emotion.
right.
Um, and they catch that, and with that awareness they start catching it, and then they can respond and not react because you just go, oh, that's just an energy bubbling up in my body, now
Right.
I can move from this space, right?
Right.
And I think that is, for myself, like obviously you know my backstory, and most of my clients do, but as someone who suffered with debilitating panic disorder, panic attacks, in the hospital all the time, thinking I was dying. I became
Cool.
agoraphobic. I could not go,
Yeah.
anywhere, leave my house. But that was what my person who taught me meditation, she made me very aware, like, hey, this is just a chemical firing off, and your
Yeah.
mind wants to create a story out of it, but you're
Right.
not that. You're not that story. Catch the
Yeah.
moment where it starts to show up in the body. That's your tool, is your body. And I love that, that you get that. One of the interesting things you and I started talking about when we got together recently is like, inner peace, whatever you want to talk about, like it's a room, right? And there's so many doors that lead there. And you have your approaches and I have mine. And man, when we started talking, it was like, wow, this all plays off of each
It
other.
all kind of fits together.
And it's so perfect. And I love that we're walking in that room from different doors and showing people, hey, because you need to have a toolkit, right? Like you need to have a ton of techniques, because life is going to constantly come over and go and smack
Yeah.
you. And you need to know which one. Okay, I'll try this. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, wait, Ben taught me this. I'll work with that, and that's really what this is all about.
So I remember when I was so my mother had 5 diseases in her spine, and all they did was just throw medication at it. And
Yeah.
all they did was throwing painkillers at it. And painkillers really killed my mother. Um, so I wanted to find out is why, if opiates are so deadly, why is that all? Why are we thinking about another way to kill pain without giving them opiates? They actually did come up with, I think it's called Prialt, Prialt, and it is twice as effective as morphine, and it's not narcotic. The medication is derived from the second most venomous animal in the world, the cone snail.
Wow, really?
So I remember talking to doctors like, why are we using this? And they're like, oh well, and they danced around that, and I never got a real answer from that.
Oh,
And then
crazy.
I was talking to people about like, so I am very cautious about medication that I take because I don't.
Of
I
course.
had a kidney stone, and they were going to give me Dilaudid. And I'm like, I'm in recovery. They're like, guys, hold on, kid, because you're going to be in some pain. And I was like, well, I'd rather be in pain than on Dilaudid.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
that's like
yeah.
heroin. So I was like, no thanks. And I'll never forget the nurse who came in. She goes, honey, are you in recovery? I go, yeah. And she goes, me too. You didn't
Oh,
get sober to feel pain. Let me see what I could do to help you. And they gave me Infuracet, which is still an narcotic, but it wasn't diluted, it was different. So like,
right, right.
you know, most people don't advocate for themselves. That's a big problem. Most people don't know how to. Most people lack the voice to speak up for themselves in a positive and effective way. People don't know how to
Yeah.
be assertive. They know how to be aggressive, but assertiveness kind of slips away. People don't know
And
how to
I,
talk.
I think that also ties into what you and I work with people. It's finding that voice, how
Hmm.
to be empowered to say your truth, how to
Right.
find how to advocate for yourself. And the reason people don't speak their truth and they don't advocate for themselves is it goes right back to, again, that limited pattern of that negative self-talk and that limited self-belief that, I can't do this, I can't, and like that, it really just cycles back to the same thing over and over again. And that's why, again, I can't say it enough, I'm so excited to work with you, because this is just
You brought up a word, and I didn't even tell you about like my methods or anything like that. And you brought up this word. You're like, well, it's all about your identity, and I loved you for that. I was like, my new best friend. I was so happy. The thing about it is, yeah, our identity. There's two words that most people don't understand about themselves: their worth or their value, right?
yeah, yeah,
So like I got married because I didn't think anyone would really love me. That was the first time anyway. Like I didn't, we had so many differences. Like I mean, Stevie Wonder could have saw that this was not going to be doing so well, to be honest. And we both, I remember when we were going to get divorced, she said, "Did you know I wasn't even going to marry you?" I'm like, "You probably shouldn't have." Like we don't even, we were in Hawaii, literally the most beautiful place in the world. I go, I've never seen a rainbow every day. This is the most beautiful place in the world. We're arguing every day. This is
Yeah.
not good. She's like, "No, all you do is argue." I go, "We argue about everything." No, we don't. And she didn't see.
Arguing about not arguing.
I go, "We're on a honeymoon. I've never been in a place this beautiful. I've never gone to too many. I'm not a world traveler.
Yeah.
Working class guy. I'm a real person. Like I'm sure real people go to a lot of places. This real person did. So if you
Yeah.
don't know,
It's all about what's going on upstairs.
if you don't know what you're worth, if you don't know what your values are, if you don't know what your hopes, your aspirations, or your passions are,
Yeah.
that's a wrap, Daddy. Like, how are you gonna get out of it? I think one thing we started talking about is like, if we were to do, what would it look like? And let me ask you, if we were to schedule maybe like a 5-stage empowerment class where
Yeah.
everyone gets their own workbook, no one has to read it, it's their workbook, and we start with simple questions, simple guidelines. Where are our challenges? Where do we want to be? What limits us? How do we find a way to navigate around these blockages? What would it look like if we had the life we wanted rather than the life we live? Most people have the life they live rather than the life they wanted. There are lucky people out there. But even I have met
Yeah.
miserable millionaires. I've
Of
met miserable
course.
billionaires.
Yeah, of course.
So
And listen, and I've had some interesting clients, obviously anonymity, but one-on-one that I've worked with. And yeah, that to look at them on the surface, you think, oh, they got it all. And then we start working together and you start finding out like, um, yeah, they're absolute workaholics because that's their avoidance technique, right? I will work myself to death, and I have all this to show for it, and I'm still miserable. And it's like, yeah, you're miserable because you're not slowing down to take that pause, take that breath, and what is it that you're running from, And that's where you and I come in. It's like, it's okay. It's a safe place where you can start to feel those emotions that you've been stuffing down for years, because this is how we do it. And like I said, for myself, when I coach people, it's let's use the body as a tool. Let's notice what fear feels like from just a sensory thing in the body. And then, I don't want to hear about the story and then the thing that your mind is
it doesn't
telling you.
matter. It's
Yeah, it doesn't
literally,
matter
it
because
doesn't
fear
matter.
is fear. And that's the funny thing. I say this a lot to clients because I'll have somebody who comes in and it's like, they tell me the whole story, right? They come in again with the identity. This is who I am. This is my
They have to let you
story.
know.
Yeah. And then
They
it goes
have
through
to
the
let
whole
you know
thing.
everything.
And at the end of it all, it turns out that when we do a lot of self inquiry using meditation as that tool, there's an underlying fear. And then I'll have somebody else come in and they got this is who I am and this is my story. And then they have an underlying thing. And it turns out that's fear. And guess what? Fear shows up the same way in that person A and person B.
Right.
And we can dismantle that, boom, and that's what you and
So
I do. And it's so great to see them when that fear finally drops.
I have a really important question, and as a professional, I would love to hear this from you.
Okay.
So I look how I look. I have an accent. I don't know if people can tell, but I am from New York.
My students know that I'm from New York because when I say downward facing dog, they go, "Oh, dog, there
Dog.
it is."
DAWG. Yep. So dog. So I had I had a client that I had to live with for 7 days on the West Coast. And when he met me, out I come. I'm a heavily tattooed guy. I'm however I look to people, I don't see that when I look at me because I still see that little boy, which is something that I work on overcoming, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so I come out, this guy looked at me and he's wealthy, he's a brilliant man. His knowledge of art was just so sorry, my bird is going crazy in the background. His knowledge about art in medieval times is phenomenal. I was so impressed by him, and he's such a sweetheart of a human being. But so whatever challenges he went through throughout the week, I remember walking with him on the last day of this retreat, and he goes, I have to tell you, I'm really glad you're the coach that they picked for me. He said, I didn't know what to expect when I saw you. And it's going to lead to my question in a second. Because I had no idea. Because I didn't know I was going to feel this connected to you. And I'm like, well, that's great. I really appreciate that. And we are, we're funny. Change is an unnatural thing, even though it's as natural as could be.
It is.
So when we sense that we have to do work, people look for an excuse. I'm not going to relate to him because he's tattooed. I'm not going to relate to him because his THs and ERs are terrible. He sounds like something from the Sopranos. Was she told? Was it him? It might have been him. That one of my clients said, "Well, the first time I heard you, I thought Joe Pesci. I don't sound anything like him, but
No.
I don't. But it's an interesting thing. And here's the question really. How do we, as professionals, learn to maneuver and navigate around a natural human resistance of, I don't trust this person, or really it's, I don't want to let this go. This is all, this identity may not
Yeah.
be working for me, but it's all I have. You're trying to take this away. What excuses can I come up with? Well, I don't like Ben because I don't like his beard. He's got grays in his beard. You can literally come up with any excuse
Yeah.
why you don't want to listen to the message. So how do you think if we had a group of people, how do we navigate and silence that resistance chapter in the mind? How would we
Yeah.
do that?
Well, I mean, for me, obviously, I approach it through a yogic practice. So, that's my specialty. And feeling resistance, believe it or not, when you get into like, and I'm not talking some crazy yoga pose like, standing on my head or anything, but just like a basic,
Can't do that, by the way.
just
I
like
saw your yoga post. I'm gonna get into it because I want to partner with you, and I'm excited to do that. I want. Don't make fun. I watched this beginners yoga thing on YouTube. I'm like, I can't do that. My
well,
body, my
so one of the things that I teach is yin yoga, and yin is where we take 25 traditional yoga poses and we couple them with the principles of traditional Chinese medicine. So I'm certified in Chinese medicine. So what we're doing there is we take a passive stretch. So these poses are either done seated or lying down. And we don't go like, if you're reaching for your toes, you're not trying to get to your toes. You actually just fold over in a very relaxed, passive stretch. So what I find is when I teach yin to people, especially people who are resistant, and we did this on a recent retreat that Annette, my other partner Annette, and I worked on, and we started the day with a yin practice, and it was a great way to get people to start to feel their body, for one, become aware of it, and also find, where does that resistance lie, right? How can I relax into this pose? She keeps saying. So I teach them how to relax into a stretch. where you can control how far you go into it and how you decide you want to, just come into your pose. And then from there, then I start to cue them on, let's notice the little subtle ways that we're still resisting. And it could be as simple as they're squinting their eyelids with their eyes closed. Okay, relax your eyelids. Or, are you clenching your teeth? Well, put your tongue behind your top teeth. That will relax your jaw muscle. And so I get them so in tune to notice that little area where you hold resistance in your body. And that tends to help people later on when we go into working with the mind now, right? And the mental resistance to, I don't want to drop this identity. And I agree with what you're saying, because I notice, especially clients that suffer with anxiety disorders, they don't want to drop the identity. It's almost like I wouldn't say a badge of honor, but they hold on to the fact, oh, I have anxiety. That's the identity, right? I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
anxiety and I don't know who I am without anxiety. So I almost hold on to my anxiety because I'm afraid to live without it. What does my life look like if I'm not Dawn who has
Who would
anxiety?
I be if I'm
Right,
not Ben with depression? Who would I be if I'm not a drug addict and alcoholic? Well,
right.
that's that,
So
and that was actually the change. So I think, and there's something that's really valuable that I don't know if people pick up on this. So I want to pull it out.
yeah,
Everything is done on a loop Q reward system, right? So when you do something, you want the reward, right?
yeah,
Like when you cook, you want to eat your food. You want to enjoy that. So
yeah,
when you give them a task and they can't do it, and you say, do this, and then they do it, you have just triggered their reward system. So then with the same breath, we could figure out ways to start triggering people's reward system, because
yeah,
when
yeah,
they feel rewarded, then you start your energy. Look at like how your energy changed when I said that.
yeah,
Think about your posture, how you look. Yes,
yes.
body language tells everything, right? So imagine if we started, wait a second, this is crazy.
All right. Well, don't give too much away. We don't want
No,
them to
no,
know
no,
about
no.
it
I don't want to
yet.
give too much away. But if fear is energy, right?
Yes.
So if we had a cup, well, this can, which I'm not gonna say what it is. It's like a lemon soda, which I never actually it's grapefruit soda. That's why it tasted different. But anyway, so let's say we have this can,
Yeah.
and there's ambition, and there's drive, but then there's fear. Fear is like a sponge, and it just absorbs everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine how much energy you would have without fear. Or even wait, oh my God, this is great. Do you remember when we were kids and they said, turn off the lights because you're wasting energy? And then some kid in the classroom said, it costs the school 10 cents if you turn the lights on and off. So people like me who are less than well behaved was like, so I remember you want to save electricity, you want to save energy, right? Your
Right.
mind is really a beautiful, elaborate, amazing thing. And it's like a big, huge storage mansion. And what happens is, if you have all these rooms with all these lights on, you're focusing on all of these scattered things. So
Yeah.
then, what would it look like? How much energy would you be saving if all the rooms you weren't in, the
Yeah.
lights were on?
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
mean, we could probably do something with this and make a class. I mean, I know you don't want me to give everything away.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, because, well, you and I are going to talk privately after this.
Yes. This isn't everybody else's business, but I'm excited because I
I
think
am too.
people, no, because I think people are going to be like, I want that.
Yeah.
Like, who
Yeah.
doesn't want to
Definitely.
be free? Who, tell me one person who doesn't want to feel better, think better, stand better, speak better, um,
Yes.
find comfort in their own skin better. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah. And I can't stress it enough. Stop looking externally for things. And what Ben and I can teach you is how to find everything within. Everything is here that you need inside yourself. You just don't know how to access it. And that's where our insight comes in and gives that to you, because then you know what, when your cup is filled, you don't need to start putting it, don't put all that out there for other people to decide how to make you feel. It's all here. And I think I can't, I'm so excited to get this out there for them. And
Me too.
one
I
of the
think I
things
think I think
one
we're
of
gonna
the
help a lot
things
of people.
yeah, I just wanted to mention that one thing that you and I have talked about, and guys, we'll be putting this out there for you, is that in July, so Ben's going to be coming down to see me, and we're going to get together and really start brainstorming and everything. But we do want to put together like an online class, just kind of have you people tune in, and you can join in and get just a taste of what it is that we're looking to put together, because eventually we want to do it more in a retreat setting.
So the idea is to make this as safe and interactive as possible. So
Right.
everyone, because I know, well, so I know this is an interview, but it's like I'm talking to one of my best friends anyway. Like, you know what I mean? So to me, this isn't really an interview. Um, we started again. Nobody knows what we had to go through to get this thing going. You were the best. Like you figured it out, and it didn't go live, but you made it happen, right? But
Yeah.
I think I really believe that there are no accidents. Equally, like it wasn't an accident that man gave me his genes. There was no accident that you called me, and these things are so life saving. And the energy that we could create would be so interesting. I want to. I know there are people though that are like, but wait, what happened when you did this? What happened when you did this? The great thing about these classes, you can ask questions and we
Yeah.
can go back and forth. This is going to be real life empowerment. We might
Yes.
even call it RLE, real life empowerment. I don't know. The ideas are going, but
Yeah, I
there
know.
was
There's so
some
much there.
there was something that you had said about balance. So what got me this job, what my first sober job, they go, they go, what is the disease of addiction to you? I go, the disease? And I started talking about Dr. Jelinek and they go, no, no, no. We don't need the clinic. I'm like, well, what do you want to know? So they
Yeah.
said, well, what do you think addiction means to you? I said, well, think about a scale. Everything you're doing is to find balance. So quick fixes may help you find balance, but it ends up happening now side of the scale tips, now the other side of the scale tips. And
Yeah.
addiction is depending upon all these external sources to find balance. And
Yeah. I really like that. Yeah.
they go, so what's recovery to you? I go, finding balance without using the external source. And one just last thing that I always
Yeah.
like to, we have been taught so many unhelpful things. And we never questioned them because we taught them. Like I told you about my mom with the coffee maker.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll save it for another time. But
Yeah. Save
so,
that one. I like it.
so I remember people said, well, what is the gateway drug? And I'm like, you tell me. And they're like, marijuana or alcohol. I'm like, well, okay, someone can say alcohol. Like, maybe, but we think marijuana is a gateway drug. I'm like, okay. So why is it an aspirin? Aspirin's a drug. You don't feel well. If you take this, the pain goes away. Why isn't that a gateway drug? Well, it's not the same thing. I go, well, how come a pacifier is not talked about? What a pacifier? You have been taught since birth to use an external thing to find an internal serenity or peace. Think about it this way. When an
Yeah.
infant cries, what does a parent do? I don't know, because he doesn't have the language, he or she or they or them, because we're living in that kind of time.
Yeah.
They don't have the language to tell you what's wrong. Parents don't know, and we get frustrated. We want them to stop crying, so we pacifier in the mouth.
Yeah.
So
And
you
there's
don't.
actually there's a lot of science on this. I just uh,
I know.
I mean, there's so much that says when most of your conditioning happens is based on your pre-verbal time.
Right.
And that actually, because that's the first part of the brain that starts to develop, right, is that limited belief system area. um that's your survival, your amygdala, right? That's the part of your brain, that's your hippocampus, all of that is there from a young age. But that's where you start with this, like you just said, that conditioning of, oh, I can't self-soothe, it has to be an external thing. So, as adults now, how do you regulate your nervous system? You're looking for external things to regulate, and you can regulate it right here. And I'll go a step further. When you talk about a gateway drug and addiction, people are addicted to their thoughts. And that's why meditation and
Are
mindfulness
they? Or
are,
am I? Yes, 100%.
that's why mindfulness and meditation is so important, because it fosters awareness. And
So wait a second.
awareness, yeah.
You're telling me that people can actually wait a second. I want to make sure I'm understanding something because I'm getting a little too excited. With
And then we
your
got to cut
process,
this. I know people are going to be like, this is like 2 hours.
I hope so. Well, I think we're fun. I want to start doing podcasts with you until we get a radio show. But so wait, you're telling me that through your process, people can actually experience some sort of neuroplasticity so they can think differently,
Yes.
feel
Rewire.
differently. Wait a second, you mean people can actually get better?
So
No.
here's a fun fact. So 5 to 6% of your activity, your mind activity, is actual consciousness,
Right.
conscious thought. The other 90 something percent, sadly, is your subconscious running the show. You're on autopilot, and
Mhm.
it's all your conditioning. Again, we talk from pre-verbal years and on. And that's where you're operating on a day-to-day basis until you start to become aware of that. And that's where there's so many ways to rewire the subconscious thought patterns, and you get yourself out of them. Meditation, great. Mindfulness, great. Hypnotherapy, like you do, great. Like, there's so many different ways to rewire the brain, and people just don't realize. They think it's like, oh, well, this is it, this is how I am. And I've even had people tell me that. They're like, nope, this is how I
Just
am.
me. This is just me. This is just who I am.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great lazy way to say that way. But so we want to remove the deception of
Yeah.
perception because the deception of perception isn't true. It's only true to you. That's what they
Right.
say. That's what they've told me.
That's your
So,
lens.
right. But if we can remove that deception, so getting rid of the deception of perception, right? Or ill perceived or misperceived ideas. Imagine we got rid of that. We got rid of irrational fear. Fear is healthy, but irrational fear. Most people don't know what an anxiety attack is. So when you have that buildup, your receptors start firing off. Your lactic acid builds up. The oxygen level in your blood goes down. That's why you get that tightness.
Yep.
So breathing exercises, oxygenating the blood. There's, wait a second, you're telling me we can actually help people?
Yes, we can.
Because I look, I love you. I know you a very long time. I consider you a dear, amazing, oh God, and such an inspirational friend. Like it's such an honor that you chose me to talk to about this. But
Aw.
you had me at hello because I know what it's like to live in my head. I know what it's like to hurt. I know what rejection feels like,
Yeah.
right? Or the assumption or the perception of rejection. I know what it's like to hold that because I don't want to let it go because I got to find accountability because I got to understand what is it about me that they don't want. Even if you found that answer, you're not going to like it. So why not just let that move, right? How about like driving through a tunnel and just keep going through? So
Yeah.
I honestly really believe we could not only help people, but have fun while doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so excited to be doing this. I'm losing my light here. I got to turn my,
No,
I got
I had the lights on. I hope no my bird sings. Hi, Popeye. His, I named him Chicken. He's rehomed, and his name was Popeye. So now he's
uh
Popeye the Chicken, and he just keeps saying hi, Popeye.
but he's
Sometimes
not
he
going
says,
to talk if we asked him to, right?
but he never does. Say something now. No.
Well, listen, this has been awesome. I'm, so excited. I'm glad that everyone that's tuning in, thanks for tuning in and listening. But I'm excited that you're getting to meet Ben and everything you said about me. I mean, I feel the same way. I think you're so inspirational. What you have gone through, and you've moved past so much with your own thoughts, and I have too. I mean,
I had to
that's
train
why,
myself how to live.
yeah, that's it. And I love also the fact that you, the last couple years took that pause for yourself
Yes.
to to heal yourself in whatever way that looked for you, because I get that. I had gone through a pretty crappy divorce, you know, the, like 4 years, 5 years ago at this point, but it was rough during that time, and it was one of those things that, yeah, I needed to just take a pause for myself, and I teach that all the time to my students, and I know that you talk to your clients about that too. Is you got to know when you got to care for this first, and it's that cliche statement, but it's so true. The oxygen mask, you got to put it on yourself first before you can
Right,
help
right.
others. And
So I always talk about the most important part of the tree is the roots.
yeah,
Doesn't matter how the trunk could be great, but if the roots aren't solidified, it's going to topple.
yeah,
You are always the square root to your own equation, right?
yeah,
You are always the square root to your own equation. I think I just I want to get back into celebrating life. I don't want to live in the past. I've been fortunate to meet someone after the divorce who, although we're not together now, it's just, I'm reminded that love is very real and love exists. And it's one of the most beautiful and bravest feelings that we have. And I say it that way to celebrate the fact that, I could certainly live in the failures of my past. I'm welcome to do that
right.
anytime,
We all could, sure.
but I would rather live in the fact that I know that there is love out there for me and there is so much hope and that the world is really such a beautiful and amazing place. And I have proof right
Yeah.
now, sitting right across from me on a computer,
Aw,
that the
stop
world is a beautiful
it.
place. It's really that true. I admire you as a professional so much, and I think we would blow the doors off of any room.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I
I'm
think that
so
like
excited. I can't wait to start working with you. And everybody pay attention, because I'll be letting you know when that online class will be that Ben and I are going to do. And I look forward to having you get down here too. So that's going to be fun.
are
So
we allowed? So that's in July. I have the dates, so
yeah,
it's not like
yeah, well, don't talk about it now while we're on camera.
no, 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 no. People, I know everyone's gonna follow me to the airport. I'm not that cool, but I would be nice. But anyway, I don't do autographs, folks. Yes, I do. But I am gonna bring down a book for you called Operation Depression, and that's it.
I think
Like,
I know the author.
yeah, I'm that guy. Like, it's also like
Yeah.
And I want to call out before we close this or you close this,
Yeah.
everyone goes through something in life. Um, whether it's abuse or in my case, sexual abuse, everyone experiences something severely unpleasant in their life. That does not have the right to limit, dictate, or determine the rest of your life.
No.
So why I say that is because Dawn, when I speak to you sometimes and I hear how you allow your logic to trump the emotional thinking. I don't know if I'm supposed to use the word Trump right now, that word, but anyway, um, I it's really amazing because the emotional mind will hold on to everything, and that you're welcome to do that. But imagine if we let that go. And I had suffered certain things in my life that I never in a million years thought I would be. Never thought I would be giving lectures in an advanced psych course. I never
Yeah.
thought I would be giving drug and alcohol courses. I never thought I would be teaching anything. Only thing I thought I could teach is how to break into a house. Like I never thought this would be me. If you came back in 1987 and been like, Benny, this is what you're going to be doing, I would have never believed it.
Well,
But
listen, I feel the same way. I would never have known that this is where I would wind up. But but that's the funny thing about life. Life is meant to be experienced, and only the mind is what limits you. And it's only your self narrative that is
mm,
telling you, like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. Um, I could go on and on. Obviously, I don't want to keep talking, but like one of the things when I start with meditation with people is I say, okay, let's talk about what are the outcomes that you think you're supposed to get from being in meditation today.
mm,
What is, because your mind is coming in with an illusion of a checklist going, it's got to have all
right,
these boxes checked, and if it doesn't check one of them, it's a failure.
it's
She doesn't
failure.
know, she doesn't know how to teach it. It
Yeah,
becomes this
right.
whole other thing. So yeah, so again, that's what we're going to do is get people to empower them and move past the mind, because that's the only thing holding you back. And
I
um
agree.
and it's not real. It's just thoughts. So,
Yeah. And as
all
someone who understands weaning off the addiction to thinking, I think that's definitely going to be one of the chapters in our empowerment class.
yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right. Well,
Thank
well,
you so much. It was a pleasure.
this
And
was
everyone watching in TV land or Zoom land or YouTube or whichever land you might be at this point, thank you so much for listening. It's really an honor and a pleasure. And thank you for hearing me without judgment.
thanks. And thanks for coming on and just being living in your
Oh,
truth,
I want to
because
do it again. It'd be crazy. Yeah, no, I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
all
I loved
right.
every
Well,
minute.
you have a good night, and
I gotta
everybody, we'll
cook.
keep you posted on what's next.
I will speak to you later.
Okay. Bye.